Welcome to Coffee Talk. I am your host, Mashuma Saba, M. Saba, and this is our Cultural Variety Podcast. Stay tuned. Peace, and welcome to Coffee Talk Podcast Cultural Studies Night. Tonight we have a read, a study, and a breakdown of page 83 of the book Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Dr. Joy DeGuri. I am your host, Mashuma Saba, M. Saba, and this is Coffee Talk Podcast. Welcome to our show. How y'all doing? It is Sunday, June 28th. And we are here, y'all. We are here. We're stepping into the summertime. Tomorrow in my city, in the Twin Cities, is going to be very hot. So if you're going to have kids out on field trips, if you're going to have your kids at summer schools, make sure that they are bringing bottles of water, something that they can rehydrate themselves with. And, just make sure that you, even as far as the elderlies, make sure that they have some water and so forth. But yeah, tomorrow's going to be hot and steamy in the Twin Cities, a place where y'all think it's just cold all year round. But actually, it does get hot. So we looking forward to it. You know what I mean? Because in the blink of an eye, it could be winter here. You know what I mean? So I'm just happy to have a nice summery day, first day of summer, matter of fact. Yeah, you know how it gets around here. It gets muggy. I just want to make sure, though, that y'all keep your clothes on. You know what I'm talking about? We're showing a lot of yams in the summertime, man. A lot of yams. All right. So welcome to the show, Coffee Talk Podcast. Again, this is the Cultural Variety Podcast show where we like to appear 3 times a week. And on Sunday, Monday, alternate weekends, alternate weekdays, weekend and weekdays, I should say, we love to bring you our cultural studies night. And tonight we got something in store for you tonight. We're going to jump into a book called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And the chapter that we will be discussing, it's not a big chapter. It's probably about 3-4 minutes, maybe less. I know that y'all's time is valuable. But we'll be talking about the CONVICT LEASE system. Have you ever heard of the CONVICT LEASE system? Do you know anybody in prison? Well, we definitely going to talk about that tonight. And so that's all we're going to talk about. So we'll make it nice and quick. But I'll tell you what, this is what you do. Make sure you pick up a phone, text, tell your friends that Coffee Talk Podcast is on tonight. Absolutely. Grab your uncles, your aunts, your grandmothers, your grandfathers, your cousins, your girlfriends, your bae, whatever you want it to be. And make sure y'all tuning in to Coffee Talk Podcast, where you can get a good series of education, you know what I mean? Knowledge and wisdom. You know what I mean? So, yeah, we're going to be talking about the CONVICT LEASE system. But before we start our show, we never start a show without giving you the wise words as well as its flavor. So tonight, the flavor is a nice snack of blueberries. Why blueberries, though? Well, blueberries are rich in nutrients like vitamin C, fiber, and potassium. That's right. And it helps with a healthy heart, a cognitive functionings, and a healthy digestive health. Helps with that digestive system. So tonight's flavor is a nice snack of blueberries. When you getting ready to, you want a candy bar or some high fructose syrup or something like that, and your sugar triggers is up and you really need something, make sure you grab you some fruit, man. You know what I mean? So grab you some of those blueberries. Again, it's rich in nutrients, vitamin C, fiber, and potassium. You know what I'm talking about? So definitely make sure that that's your flavor for tonight. Also, as I stated before, make sure you grab you some other flavors such as some water. You see here, I got my water inside my copper cup. You know what I'm saying? Tonight I'm sipping on green tea. So cold green tea at that. So that's what we're on. That's tonight's flavor. But wherever you are, what is the flavor for you? What are you sipping on? What are you drinking on? What are you snacking on? You know what I mean? Go ahead and put that in the comments, man. We'll give you a shout out. What are you doing? I mean, in Minnesota, we got a lot of patios, decks, things like that. So if you're not out at the lake or at a park, I assure you that you should be probably on your patio right now. You know what I mean? Turning your jazz down just a little bit because Coffee Talk Podcast is on, but making sure that you are having a good time. Ain't that what it's about? About knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, being sucker-free, being righteous, and making sure that you're having a good time for yourself. You know what I'm talking about? And excuse me, I sweat a little bit. It's hot in the studio tonight. I'm like my mother. My mother sweats too. So every time I'm sweating, I can hear it saying, "Oh, let's hurry up and go before my perm falls down." You know what I mean? Yeah, I'm her son, her firstborn. All right, so we already went through the flavor. Let's go ahead and jump right into the wise words, shall we? All right. So the wise words is from a political activist, an author, a scholar. She was born January 26, 1944 in Birmingham, Alabama. And she's an inspiration to a lot of women out there, a lot of young men as well. She's one of our own. I like to call her, one of our ancestors, living ancestors at that. But this elder, again, was born January 26, 1944 in Birmingham, Alabama, and she goes by the name of Angela Davis. Angela Davis once quoted, she said, "When children attend schools that place value on discipline and security, then on knowledge and intellectual development, they are attending prep schools for prisons." Absolutely. Again, these are our wise words for tonight. Angela Davis once quoted, "When children attend schools that place value on discipline and security, then on knowledge and intellectual development, they are attending a prep school for prison." What do y'all think about that? Have you heard such terms such as prison to pipeline? Are the schools which continue to teach a 50, 60-year curriculum, is it beyond repair? It has failed many. And some with excuses may say it helped some. What is your thoughts on that? How do you feel about the school system? I know teachers do need more money, though, because they got a tough task at hand. You know what I mean? But go ahead and let us know what your thoughts are. Make sure you leave that in the chat box. Make sure that while you're there, you make sure you hit the like button, man. It costs nothing to hit the like button. Let us know you're here. Make sure you're supporting us here at Coffee Talk Podcast. Make sure you click on the notification. And if you ever cannot find us, you always can find us on YouTube. You know what I'm talking about? This is Coffee Talk Podcast. All right. So like I had stated, before we go into the CONVICT LEASE system, I do want to just give some more shout outs to Angela Davis, because as I stated, she is an author. She is a scholar. She is an activist. And some of the great books, I have 4 of them written down here that maybe you can go out and purchase for yourself as you build your own personal library for you, your family, your kids. You know what I mean? Angela Davis wrote the autobiography of Angela Davis back in 1974. She also wrote a book called Women, Race, and Class in 1980, a book called Women, Culture, and Politics in 1989, and as well as a book titled Our Prisons Obsolete back in 2003. You know, so those are just a few of her works. Again, we are speaking about Angela Davis. All right, so we're going to go ahead and dive in. Again, this is a book called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, and it's by Dr. Joy DeGury. And as you know, if this is your first time appearing here and catching us on a cultural studies night, we really encourage reading. Reading is fundamental, you know what I mean? And we encourage our people to read more. You know, we have very low standard scores as far as comprehension goes. You know, we really believe in literature. We really believe in the study and reading and learning words, studying linguistics, prepping your mind and feeding your mind on how to grow your vocabulary. So when you walk in different rooms or arenas, you'll be able to hold your conversation more confidently in any space and time. You know what I mean? So that's why we definitely encourage the practice of just reading, man. Even if you just reading 5 minutes a day, that's good. You know what I mean? Even if you're not in school and you have the whole summer not doing anything, your parents, your friends, your mentors, your elders should be encouraging reading. And if you don't like what they're reading, you find something that you're interested in. You know what I mean? One of them is culture, though. So you should always be reading about yourself, man. It definitely brings pride when you are reading and studying your culture. You know, you are more than what they tell you. You know what I mean? You come from kings and queens, great lands, great dynasties. You are not a slave, and you're definitely not a minority. All right, let's go ahead and jump right in. The convict lease system. Again, this is a very quick read. We'll be done in another 5 minutes or less. But this read here, it's about 3 minutes, 2 minutes at most, maybe 2 to 3 minutes. But anyway, let's go. Let's begin. The convict lease system. While most believe that the 13th Amendment abolished slavery and involuntary servitude, a loophole was opened that resulted in the widespread continuation of slavery in the southern states of America. Slavery as punishment for a crime. With the overturning of the black codes, southern plantation owners once more moved that they are without a cheap source of labor. At the same time, southern states had their own dilemma: what to do with free blacks that had committed crimes. Building and maintaining prisons was expensive, and state coffers were all but empty. The solution, rather than imprison those convicted of crimes, was to lease them to plantation owners as well as proprietors of other businesses for the duration of their sentence. In this way, everyone wins. Businessmen got cheap labor and states got paid. Did I say everybody won? Well, almost everyone. In the state of South Carolina, the work was so peerless for those under lease and the living environment so intolerable, half of the individuals that were leased died within the first 12 months. Some authorities have estimated that as many as a quarter of all blacks leased convicts throughout the South died while still under lease. Their labor, of course, was manual and backbreaking. Convicts were starved, beaten, brutalized, and at times even sodomized. You know what sodomized means, people? Buck breaking. They were worked to death in some of the severest of conditions. They slaved in fields on railroads, in mines. If one died, the operator of the business was simply called a state for a replacement. Life as a leased convict was no better than life as a slave, at times even worse. After all, not only were they less than human, they were now criminals. Or were they? Often, false criminal charges was trumped up as a means of legally securing large numbers of free or cheap human laborers. Looking at a white woman could get you arrested for sexual assault. Walking on the wrong side of the street might equate to disturbing the peace. Not only were many blacks falsely arrested, they were convicted at a much higher rate and received much harsher sentences than their white counterparts. It seems many in the South were not quite ready to give up on slavery. Only this time, the public's conscience was eased by the assertions of politicians, police, and others in authority that blacks deserve to be held captive because of their inherent tendencies towards criminality. Such ludicrous ideas were the inspiration for the concept of the white man's burden. The white man's burden referred to white people's obligation to control, direct, and civilize all those they believe to be from inferior races. For their own good, of course. In this way, they uncivilized people. In this way, these uncivilized people could become cultured citizens ready to play their part in their own development. Charles A. Elwood, in his 1930 book, Sociology and Modern Social Problems, wrote in a chapter entitled The Negro Problem. The problem of the Negro and of the Indians and of all of the uncivilized races is essentially the same. The problem is how a relatively large mass of people inferior in culture and perhaps also inferior in nature can be adjusted relatively to the civilization of a people much their superior in culture. How the industrially inefficient nature man can be made over into the industriously inefficient civilized man. The convict lease system began in April in 1846 and spread throughout the slave states soon after the war. It should be noted that while the system was not originally designed for blacks, it eventually became another tool for their re-enslavement after emancipation. Convict leasing was so successful that by 1898, nearly 3/4 of Alabama's total revenue came directly from this institution. Other states employed this practice, reaped similar benefits until its eventual end in 1928. But it did not end. Convict lease rapidly was replaced by chain gangs, a similarly brutal form of forced labor which continued until its final abolishment in the 1850s. For almost 100 years, the emancipation Southern wealth continued to be built on the backs of what amounted to a slave workforce. This is the convict lease system. So what do y'all think? What do y'all think about that? I went ahead and have some questions that I'm going to go ahead and present as we get ready to end our show. And we challenge you, our viewers and our supporters, to go ahead and listen to these questions, analyze these questions, and give us your thoughts on them. Go ahead and put that in the chat box. You know what I mean? These are great conversations to have with your loved ones, whether that's your husband, your wife, your children, your grandparents, your parents, you know, on the road, on the plane, on the train. These are some questions that we should be talking about. So question number one, again, out of the book Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Dr. Joy DeGury. is I wanted to know y'all's thoughts, man. You know, imagine you're already not liked because of the color of your skin or the greatness of yourself. Yet you have to feed your family. And through what all means, all these things held against you, not having much in return of the work that you had before you was emancipated. Imagine trying to feed your family, and every movement is considered criminal because it's you. Them taking you and forcing you into some type of labor, beating you, sodomizing you. Sodomize was one of the first things they would do on plantations when they would take the strongest man or the most intelligent man on the plantation, and they would go ahead and rape him in front of his family, his children. They call that buck breaking. Let me show the others how I can treat a person. So my first question is, does that still go on today? Do you see people knocking down our people, our celebrities, our billionaires, putting them on blast as far as when you're talking about media coverage, attacking their character and integrity before they're even found guilty or innocent? Again, there was a time when we used to live in a society where you were innocent until proven guilty. Yet today, you are guilty until proven innocent. Did you know that the convict lease system again started in Alabama in 1846? What is your thoughts about Alabama? Do you know anyone currently serving time in the prison system, whether that is state or federal? Did you know that the highest pay when you're in prison usually comes out of the private sector, which generally could range up to $4, depending. But the national average typically is an hourly wage of 14 cents to 63 cents. Could you work for 14 cents? Is it worth going to jail for 14 cents an hour or 63 cents an hour? Or you get a private sector job where you are probably doing something for a company, plastics, or anything like that, of that nature. These are just thoughts, and these are just questions. You know? But whatever it is, I want you to think about not going to jail. I want you to think about finding your purpose and what you're here for. And if you don't have a purpose, perhaps you get with some other like-minded people and start thinking about what is your purpose as you are here on this planet Earth. What is important to you? What is the square that you're willing to stand on? How also can you avoid triggers from others? They say some people will send you off. That's a street term. Sending you off to commit some silly crime or some meaningless crime where you could wind up in jail, whether that's state or federal, getting paid $14. 14 cents, between 14 cents and 63 cents. Go ahead and let us know what your thoughts are. Let us know if you know anybody that's serving time and if it was worth it. You know what I mean? And also, because we do believe in empowerment, go ahead and let us know what you can share with the next person whenever you see somebody thinking about something silly that can wind them in prison. How can you attach yourself to that problem to come up with a solution for them to get out that problem, or at least give them some wise words or wisdom? That's our show for tonight. I am your host, Mashuma Saba M. Saba. And this is Coffee Talk Podcast, a cultural studies night. And thank you for tuning into our show and being supportive. I'm going to hit you with the universal peace sign. Thank you. Until next time, peace.